Planet Earth 300 million years ago. A world of lush green forests. Sanctuary for creatures gaining a foothold on land. But within this ancient habitat, a colony of insects already hummed with life. Insects were the first airborne creatures. In their early days, giant dragonflies with wingspans of nearly 3 feet dominated the skies. Insects of myriad designs were evolving. Stenodictia looks a lot like the present-day dragonfly. Protophasma bears an uncanny resemblance to today's cockroaches. With strikingly different anatomies, our amphibian ancestors were also making their way onto land. Over the ages, amphibians would give birth to dinosaurs, mammals, and a host of other animals. But insects, more than any other creature, would succeed at populating the face of planet Earth. $150 million years ago, Earth's land vertebrates had made remarkable progress. Barosaurus, a giant that ruled Jurassic forests throughout most of the dinosaur era. This animal was as tall as a 5-story building and stretched more than 80 feet from end to end. In the years following their arrival on land, dinosaurs diversified, ultimately penetrating every ecosystem across the globe. At the height of their 100-million-year reign on Earth, dinosaurs were a model of evolutionary success. This dragonfly fossil from the dinosaur era is only a fraction the size of its ancestors. Faced with numerous predators, insects reversed earlier survival strategies, growing smaller as time passed. Without a backbone, vertebrates like the dinosaur could never have grown to their gargantuan size. A sturdy spine could support a larger body. Insects have no internal structural support, just a kind of body armor. a skeleton worn on the outside. If this beetle could grow as large as some vertebrates, this anatomical design would spell disaster. With its carapace of shell now stretched thin, the inner body sags and eventually collapses. If its exoskeleton were thickened to support a giant body, the beetle would fare no better. To hold the beetle's weight, the shell would have to be very thick, so thick that there would be no space left for muscles and organs. Exoskeletons were an evolutionary innovation, but they had their limitations. Size was only one adaptation. Insects tested other survival strategies, developing special organs for their streamlined bodies. One major achievement, the compound eye. The compound eye is an assembly of as many as 25,000 tiny lenses. Each of these hexagons is the lens of an individual eye. Viewed in cross-section, the compound eye appears very thin, like a layer of film. 2,000 of these lenses together occupy only one tiny square millimeter of space. This is an artificial compound eye, designed to simulate an insect's vision. A plate with 2,000 lenses is placed in front of a camera. Although less precise than the average human's eyesight, insect vision is sharp enough to discern the shape of these flowers. This unique adaptation gives dragonflies an advantage, which would be passed on to other insects. In Earth's evolutionary drama, who or what survives or vanishes to extinction is unpredictable. The rise of flowering plants or angiosperms spelled the end of the dinosaur era and a new age for insects and mammals that flourished in their midst. In his outdoor laboratory, Cornell University biologist Dr. Carl Nicholas observes nature's age-old alliances at work. To ensure their survival, Nicholas says that early plants and insects formed highly specialized relationships.
Insect pollination allows a plant to transport pollen from one individual to the next, using the brain of the insect to identify the same kind of plant as the donor of the pollen. So, for example, you can have angiosperms that are separated by many miles, two flowering plants of the same species, separated by many miles, and the insect can transport pollen over that mileage. Plants can't move, but insects can.
Through the act of pollination, insects and flowers became partners in evolution, helping each other to survive and prosper. Flowering plants reward insects with nectar or pollen, providing a sensory roadmap to the source.
During the Cretaceous, for the very first time, there was a partnership that was established between flowering plants and insects. Before that time, it was an antagonistic relationship. The insects were eating the plants. But with the evolution of flowering plants, a kind of hand-and-glove relationship began to evolve. Flowers started changing their reproductive structures to accommodate the insects that were visiting them, and insects were beginning to change their morphology, their shape, to accommodate the visiting of flowers.
The most sophisticated adaptation was undoubtedly the compound eye. Unlike humankind, insects can see colors in ultraviolet light. Observed through a special camera that simulates insects' vision, flowers look different than they do to our naked eye. Like neon road signs, the vivid centers beckon, each plant favoring specific insects. Through one-on-one relationships, both insects and flowers prospered. By the end of the dinosaur era, scientists believed that the diversity of insects was almost complete, with the number of species nearing present-day levels. A weevil, less than half an inch long. Its long trunk searching for pollen looks like that of a miniature elephant. 60,000 different species of weevil exist today. Remaining small and adapting to a variety of habitats and food sources, insects are masters of survival. Across the globe, they have prospered for millions of years, unlike any other living creature. Evidence of nature's partnerships abounds in fossil records around the world. Where bonds are strong, the odds of mutual survival improve. The suburbs of Frankfurt am Main, Germany. 50 million years ago, this area was a lake surrounded by a dense forest. From time to time, lethal volcanic gas erupted from these waters. Annihilated by the vapors, animals that walked or swam or flew were buried here millions of years ago, enveloped in an earthen time capsule. This beetle fossil scintillates a beautiful metallic blue. This is an ancient jewel beetle. The exceptional conditions of this lake bed preserved the beetle's exquisite natural color. This stag beetle also maintains a distinctive shape, as if it were still alive. Altogether, 400 species of insects were found here in the Messel oil pit. Alongside the insects, a number of mammal fossils were excavated. Proof that in the wake of the dinosaur, Earth's evolutionary path had taken a new turn. From these shadowy remains emerges the shape of a head. It's a bat, the most frequently sighted animal here. The theory is that bats flying over the lake succumbed to poisonous gas eruptions and fell to their watery tomb. So sudden were their deaths that even the stomachs became fossilized. This compound eye was found in the digestive tract of a fossilized bat. It had been feeding on insects. Scales from the bodies of moths also surfaced in these specimens. From the samples found at Messel came evidence that surprised biologists. Moths made up to 70% of the bat's diet. To escape the notice of predatory birds during daylight hours, moths over time lived on the night shift. Today, more than 200,000 species of moths exist on the planet. They are the most successful of the nocturnal insects. Bats have been nocturnal animals for more than 50 million years. Most modern-day bats still prey on moths. Confining themselves in caves and crevices during the day, they emerge at sundown in search of prey. Bats fly in the dark with the help of ultrasound, inaudible to human ears. A specially devised microphone picks up the ultrasound emitted by the bats. Relying on ultrasound to see obstacles and prey, bats fly freely through the night forest. The bat's peculiar nose serves as a satellite dish emitting ultrasound. A huge pair of ears may equal half the size of the bat's head. Inside the ear is a snail-shaped organ. This highly sensitive device can detect even the slightest ultrasound echo. A tremendous amount of information captured by the ears gathers in the brain. A breakdown of the sensory data provides the bat with an image of its surroundings, as if it could actually see. The bat releases various types of ultrasound to trap moths. First, it emits ultrasound in search mode, scanning for signs of the moth. Detecting the precise shape, location, and speed of its intended victim, the bat can swoop in for the kill like a laser-guided missile. With survival skills honed over millions of years, bats are master predators. The University of Toronto, Canada. It is here that zoologist Dr. James Fullard studies the defense mechanisms of the moth. He now knows that moths have a specially developed organ designed to help them evade bats.
Moths were flying at night and didn't have ears before the bats arrived. And once bats began to fly, once bats began to send out their sonar signals, then the moths had to come up with some way in which to detect the bats. And what moths did was change a very sensitive sense organ on the base of one of their wings that was already there, that was telling the moth what the position of their wings were. And because that was already a sensitive organ, that organ became what we call pre-adapted, or it became more likely to turn into this particular organ. In this case, what happened was it became an ear.
Directly below the moth's wings lies a small hole. Within is the tympanic membrane, a kind of eardrum. Further inside this ear are the two cells that catch the bat's ultrasound. How can moths fend off attack using only this rudimentary system?
The moth knows that the bat is getting very close because it can hear that sound with its ears. The bat sounds closer because it's louder, and the bat is also putting out a kind of sonar which is specific to being very close. So the moth has that information. It knows. It can't see, of course, this is all happening at night, but it knows by its ears where the bat is. And it also can tell which side the bat is coming from because it has two ears. It has an ear on this side, it has an ear on that side, and by determining which side the bat is coming from, it can make a correct movement away.
Dr. Fullard has been working with tape recordings of a bat's ultrasound to determine how moths might escape these predators. This is the same ultrasound bats use in tracking mode. The moment the ultrasound begins, the moth responds by flapping furiously, eventually ceasing its struggle to escape. The experiment shows that with only two cells activated, the moth is extremely sensitive. Immediately picking up the bat's ultrasound, the moth reacts quickly, increasing its chances of survival.
Some moths will just fold their wings up and drop straight to the ground. And that is hopefully to get away from the bat, because the bat will be swooping like that. There's another way of getting away from the bat, though, which is exactly the opposite, and that's to actually fly up. Because what the bat is doing is coming down like this, the moth flies up, the bat, because it's heavier, can't adjust its flight in time, and so misses the moth as it goes underneath.
Free-flying moths were exposed to the same tape recordings. The instant the ultrasound stimulates the moth, it appears to fall toward the ground. Tracked in stop motion, the moth actually turns around and quickly nosedives. In the nick of time, the moth escapes the simulated bat. With its attacker only a few feet away, the moth vanishes from the bat's radar.
The insects that have lived the longest in the world are the ones that have got the simplest nervous systems. You just can't count nerve cells and say that some animals are better than other animals. Animals are evolved into what they have to do in life, and evolution allows them to do that. And evolution doesn't make any judgments. It doesn't say this animal's better than that animal. It lets the animals decide who's better than that. And the successful ones survive, and the unsuccessful ones don't.
Over millions of years, the slow accumulation of simple adaptations has made insects a diverse and resilient group. In the tropics of Asia, swallowtail butterflies have honed one of nature's most brilliant survival strategies. Cleverly hidden in the branches of this tree is the pupa of a swallowtail. It is camouflaged green to blend in with the foliage. Here, the pupa of the same species is brown. To protect themselves from their chief predator, the bird, swallowtail pupae adjust their color to match their surroundings. What actually determines the color of the swallowtail pupae? Dr. Keiichi Honda of the University of Hiroshima, Japan, speculates that the answer lies in the texture of the branches. He prepares two wires. One is green but rough, the other brown but smooth. These conditions reverse the natural order. How will the larvae adjust? The insects can barely see. Instead, they feel the surface of the wire as they inch along. Choosing a safe place to transform into moths is their last act as larvae. Within a few days, the pupa on the rough wire turns brown. The one on the smooth wire is sheathed in green. Relying on touch instead of vision, the larvae adjust their color. Insects can't see the detailed features of different parts of a tree. Their behavior is based on very limited sources of information. In nature, a smooth surface means a green branch, a rough surface, a brown one. A simple but critical concept for survival. Some insects mimic even the most delicate textures of leaves. The elaborate technique of camouflage is truly astounding and remains to this day one of the great natural defenses. Responding to nuances of their environment, these tiny insects have survived the ages, while entire families of vertebrates became extinct. In the woods of suburban Tokyo, a model cooperative thrives. Once independent operators, insects long ago discovered that collective living could work more efficiently. These are Japanese honeybees, by some standards one of nature's most complex insect societies. In this colony, 10,000 honeybees make up one society. It is a strict caste system that maintains clear division of labor. Some bees forage, while others build nests or store honey. The hive functions smoothly without a leader because the bees act in concert. This social behavior is the secret of their success. In wooded areas across Japan, the honeybees find sanctuary. But there are times when the atmosphere changes and this quiet haven becomes a battleground. A wasp tries to attack the honeybees flying in and out of the nest. Hearing the vibrating wings of the enemy wasp, the honeybees perform a war dance, shaking their bodies and fluttering their wings in a threatening gesture. In response, the wasp attempts a sneak attack on the honeybee nest. The wasp is several times larger than the bees, but the honeybees are fiercely territorial. One after another, they fall upon the invader, eventually covering him completely. A look through a special heat-sensitive camera reveals that the swarm of bees engulfing the wasp is getting warmer and warmer. Vibrating the muscles of their wings, the honeybees are cooking the wasp. When the temperature reaches 113 degrees Fahrenheit, the wasp dies. The honeybees can generate more heat, but are careful not to let the temperature climb any higher. At 118 degrees, they too could risk death. This skillful defense allows bees to take on enemies larger than they are. Inside the hive, the entire colony is creating a wave of sound. Like a squadron of fighter planes, these insects are delivering a powerful display to their enemies. Professor Masami Sasaki of Tokyo's Tamagawa University is studying how the bees communicate the location of pollen and nectar. First, he places an artificial feeder about 100 yards from the colony. A solution of sugar water at the edge of the feeder rewards visiting bees. The first bee to visit the feeder is marked with blue. Scientists and other honeybees will watch it closely when it returns to the colony. Back in the hive, the bee spins around as if dancing. Those observing its gyrations will be marked with orange. Soon, the bees dotted in orange will leave the colony. One by one, they head straight for the artificial feeder. All of the bees find their way. How did they know where to look? Somehow, the location of this feeder was announced to the hive by the bee marked in blue. Scientists like Professor Sasaki believe that honeybees use the sound of their wings to communicate. But what kind of information is being transmitted by the wing's vibration? Professor Sasaki's group makes field recordings of the bees to bring back to the lab for analysis. When the honeybees shimmy, Sasaki says the sound produced indicates distance from the colony to the potential food source.
情報を受け取る側の蜂はこういうふうに踊っているダンサー
We think that the honeybees receiving information from a member of the colony wave their antennae over the dancing bee like this. They recognize the sound vibrations resonating through the antennae and then fly off to the flowers.
餌場を近いところは
Sometimes we place the feeder a few feet from the colony, sometimes half a mile away.
ミツバチが踊りわけですけども
The returning honeybees dance. We learn that if they dance for 1 second, it means that the food source is about 2,200 feet away, and that's what they're communicating to the others.
Upon closer observation, the dance is more complex than it looks. The honeybee will always face the same direction when it shimmies, generating sound. Using only body language, the bee gives precise directions to the nectar. The hive stands perpendicular to the ground. When the bee gyrates, it too is vertical. The line of the hive and the direction of the dance create an angle, as illustrated by this diagram. By shifting the line to the position of the sun, scientists discovered that the gyrating bee points directly to the food source. As the dawn breaks and flowers stretch to greet the sun, the colony hums with activity. A message delivered by a single bee reverberates throughout the hive. Acting collectively, these simple creatures have forged communities that have withstood environmental pressures. Throughout the ages, specialization has ensured the bee's survival. But in the world of insects, bees were not alone in developing complex societies. Sealed in a capsule of amber, this ant and larva have been frozen for 20 million years. Where were they headed when time suddenly stopped? Suspended in this tiny 2-inch square is the rest of its colony. In all, 2,000 ants. Ants are the minimalists of the insect world, with no physical frills. They look similar to bees, but have no wings. Their vision is poor, yet they have developed an even more sophisticated social structure than bees. At the Brussels Free University, researchers are attempting to understand how these complex societies work. In his laboratory, Professor Jean-Louis de Neubourg is studying the way ants interact within the colony using simple logic-based mechanical models. Ants are in the habit of collecting scattered objects. De Neubourg is observing the insects to find out what determines their behavior. His research has led him to conclude that individual ants are hardwired by nature to follow a simple set of rules. Using tiny ant-like robots, de Neubourg tests his theories. He gives them easy logic instructions. The rest is left to chance. If there is a peg in front of the robot, it will pick it up and carry it. If it runs into another peg, it will set it down and turn in a random direction. Over time, a significant pattern appears, even though the robots operate independently of one another. This small-scale model illustrates how ants acting as simple individuals can produce a collective result. From models like this one have come insights into the nature of intelligence and the functioning of insect societies.
It is clear that there is no headquarter or leader, and that there is no centralized system as we know for humans. But what self-organization teaches us is that the rules needed to produce such a global response, such a well-defined pattern, are generally more simple. They are not as complex as specialists looking at social insects believe these rules must be.
Barro Colorado Island, a small slice of tropical rainforest on the Panama Canal. Professor de Neubourg's team has come to study a species of ant that for millions of years has thrived in jungles throughout the Americas. The leafcutters. On a network of highways, they've trampled through the forest. They speed along in convoys, sometimes several hundred yards long. These tiny insects have fared exceptionally well in the evolutionary chain. Studying their behavioral patterns, the scientists are trying to understand the secrets of their success. In rainforests like this one, leafcutter ants clear more vegetation than any other living creatures. Unlike most other kinds of ants, leafcutters can digest fresh foliage. Using its long legs as a compass, a leafcutter measures a neat crescent. Its sharp mandibles trim the leaf as efficiently as scissors. The harvesting continues night and day. A colony of leafcutters will collect close to a ton of foliage this way every year. Carrying leaf fragments many times their own weight, the ants cover long distances at dizzying speeds. Efficient grazers, they forage selectively, moving frequently from plant to plant. When a fallen leaf barricades their route, the obstacle is promptly removed. Eons of experience have made them efficient foresters. Like all ants, leafcutters are a society of females, born of the same queen. Only the largest do the heavy lifting in the forest. The ants live in huge colonies, sometimes 5 million strong. One of the oldest agricultural societies on Earth, each member has duties to perform, their job determined by their size. Inside the nest, mid-size ants pick up the relay, tearing the leaves into smaller pieces. Another caste chews the leaf fragments into pulp, adding fecal fluid as fertilizer. The smallest ants in the colony apply the paste to the nest walls, which will then be mixed with fungus from older chambers. Others weed and harvest. Soon, the small white puffs will spread across the nest, enough to feed the entire colony. These fungi are the mainstay of their diet. Working their subterranean plots, leafcutters are the only fungus-growing ants to use live plants in their farming. Agriculture was a way of life for these insects millions of years before humans appeared on the planet.
I don't know why such insects.
I don't know why such insects stimulate me so much.
So much. It's possible that
It's possible that it's a little bit because it's like another planet. Because we are human and function within a certain system, we think of all behavior in terms of our logic, our rules. But it's an entirely different situation in the insect world.
And I have in front of me something which
Here I have in front of me something that is stronger and more original than any science fiction books that I have ever read in my life.
In my life.
It is morning in the forest. Rush hour is already underway. Filing through the branches like obedient motorists, these ants are cleaning house after the harvest. It's time to make room for another crop. The ants pile the refuse in one place, their own compost heap. The mountain of discarded leaves will eventually return to the soil to provide rich fertilizer for the forest. For 300 million years, insects have held fast to successful survival strategies. By responding to evolutionary pressures, modifying their size, and becoming masters of camouflage, their communities continue to thrive. Today, insects account for at least 70% of the animal species on Earth. In the lottery of life, they have outmaneuvered the dinosaur and a host of other creatures, great and small. At home, in every ecosystem of the planet, their luck shows no sign of running out. Perhaps humans can learn from the eloquent simplicity of insects as we answer environmental challenges of our own.